Welcome to Confirmation Bias, presented by the League Ambassadors.
I'm Ambassador Kenny Ken, and I want to take this opportunity to offer heartfelt condolences to the family of Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim pitcher Tyler Skaggs. Terrible loss. And that's my confirmation bias.
I'm Ambassador Junior Blue, and today I started jump shot shooting training with my young son. Because if you have that one skill, the NBA is ready to pay you $30 million. And that's my confirmation bias.
I thought that was going elsewhere. I'm Ambassador Dad. And as of the time that we are filming this show, we have 64 days, 21 hours, 55 minutes, and 9 seconds until the start of the NFL season. And that's my confirmation bias.
And I'm Ambassador Raekwon, the Chef Curry. And if Colin Kaepernick has enough influence to get a company like Nike to pull a product that might be offensive, I wonder if he can convince Jeff Bezos to stop killing people at Amazon. And that's my confirmation bias.
Welcome to Confirmation Bias. This is episode 79 of our podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, League Ambassadors. Please like and share our podcast, Confirmation Bias, on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play or wherever you consume podcasts. Also, please visit our website, theleagueam.com. What else? We've got Twitch. Follow us on Twitch. This is
Social media handles, sir.
Social media handles at the League AM. Thank you. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We've got a lot of NBA free agency to cover. We've also got some Wimbledon. We've got some boxing. We've got some soccer. We've got some NFL. We've got a little bit of everything. Let's get into our show. Oh, reminder, if you are watching us live on Facebook, please get your questions, comments in, as we will cover that in our online segment, Diplomatic Immunity. We would really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you for the show business, sir.
Let's get to hot topics.
We was in a rush to do this fucking thing.
Yeah. NBA.
That's what happens when you take a week off.
NBA free agency.
Getting us sound like he forgot to stretch before this shit.
Yeah.
This is warm up.
All right. Oh, a lot
Let's
of
go,
moves.
brother. Come on.
Sunday, June 30th. We've had some movement in the NBA. I believe the number is 40%. There were over 40% NBA players that were free agents. There were a lot of moves that happened.
Wasn't it something like $3 billion?
I believe.
Something stupid like that? Yep.
Yeah. So we will do our best to cover it all and talk about it. We'll start with probably the biggest story on the opening of free agency, and that was the movement to Brooklyn, the Brooklyn migration. We have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving that left their respective teams to join up in Brooklyn with the Nets. Let's start here. First of all, obviously skipping a year ahead because Kevin Durant will not be playing next season. Will this combination work? And I will start with you, Dad.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. If we're talking strictly KD and Kyrie on the court, I think the answer is yes. I think because they both have a shit ton to prove. I think Kyrie after winning his own team, went to Boston, seeing how poorly that went, has a lot to prove. I think he understands now that he's best suited as a 1B or a 2. And I think KD has experienced the full spectrum of the whole NBA cycle of being the hero, being the villain, not getting credit for things that he's done. And I think he chose Siberia to go and work on his legacy, because if he can win there and he can win with someone like Kyrie who was outcasted, I think that helps his push for his legacy down the line, because everyone is never going to forget him joining up with the 73-9 team to win 2 titles. So I think with that all there, I think that's a recipe for them to at least push to try and make it happen. I don't think Kyrie makes the same mistakes he did in Boston.
What's so different, Junior Blue, about, and I'm asking this from Kevin Durant's perspective, what's so different about Kyrie and Russell Westbrook? Because I thought the whole idea of leaving Oklahoma City, besides just saying, I'm never going to be able to win with this guy, you're not going to be able to win, or he was feeling stifled by a ball-dominant point guard. And now you come back, Golden State, they have a ball-flowing system. They made, I feel like, an exception for his exceptional isolation talent, which is undeniable. But now you come back into a situation here in Brooklyn with another ball-dominant point guard. What's supposed to be different, Junior Blue?
Well, we've seen Kyrie work with LeBron, so we know he has the ability to play with another star like that. I honestly feel Kyrie is somewhere in between Steph and Russ. He's somewhere he's the middle of that, where he has the ability to take over games. He shoots a whole lot better than Russ. So if he's taking shots, you don't have a big issue with that. You're not shooting 29% from 3. So, and what we saw in Cleveland was, although he didn't like it, and when Kyrie didn't like playing as the little brother to LeBron, but he was able to do it. They were able to take turns. Sometimes he played off the ball. Sometimes he played on the ball. And I feel like that's what will happen in Brooklyn. My biggest problem with them is, what is Durant going to be when he comes back? And to me, you're going to have Kyrie there for a whole year playing on his own. I don't want to say on his own. He does have other players with him, but he's the star of the team, right? Then the following year, you're going to have Durant coming back, who I feel is going to feel like, I'm back, I'm Durant, but he's not going to be 100% himself. The first, not this coming year, but the following year, the 2021 season, I think that's going to be rough. And I think it's going to be because KD is not going to be what he used to be.
Kev, I want to bring it to you, staying on that point. So here's a scenario I'm painting for you. Next year goes, Kevin Durant is not playing, Kyrie is by himself. The Nets actually do worse next season, or this upcoming season, than they did this previous season with D'Angelo Russell. And then Kevin Durant comes back. How does that look and how does that work?
Yeah, for me, that's where the problem lies, because how does Kyrie change his game that second year after spending this whole year feeling like he's the guy that needs to carry this team? And as a guy who, like Les said, we've seen him defer to another guy. Is he willing to do that again? Because I think he's at his best when he isn't the number one option and he knows it. I don't necessarily know if he will feel that way when KD comes back, because, like he mentioned, this is home for him. This is where he's always wanted to play. He'll already have a year in ahead of Kevin Durant coming back. So to answer the question that you originally asked, Devin, will it work in terms of them competing or making the playoffs? Like, I think so, even if KD is 80, 90% of what he was. But in terms of them actually winning championships with the way the East is currently designed, I don't know. I just think they're up there with the other 3 or 4 teams that can get out of the East, but I don't think they're necessarily, above any of the other teams. I don't necessarily see that just yet.
Well, Kev, I disagree with the point that he will try to come out this next season when he's by himself and try to do too much. I think he has less pressure than he had when he went to Boston, because he knows that he has that KD card in his back pocket. And they know that this year is essentially a wash, but for them to kind of gel and he can, get acclimated. I think it's more so the following year, but I think that he's more mature. And to go back to the question about Russ, I don't think he'll compound his mistakes. I think he'll learn from them.
So, but that's the thing, though. I think there's a very real scenario here where Brooklyn is not as good this season as they were last season. And does that not create and bring pressure into what is right now seemingly a harmonious situation?
Not if the city knows that they won. Brooklyn in particular, meaning that they got that big star. They have the second star, and that after this year, they're back.
They punted on this season.
So one of the funny things, or the funniest thing about this entire story, was I love how they tried to sell this as like this was a big three acquisition, because DeAndre Jordan, who we'll get to in a little bit, was part of this deal. Does he help at all Brooklyn in terms of this situation, Kev?
Yeah, I think he helps. I mean, this isn't a big three. Like, relax. But I do think he gives them depth along with Jared Allen in the front court. I think he brings a pick and roll element to their offense that'll help Kyrie Irving and even help Kevin Durant. In some instances, they don't have to keep going to the same well the way that LeBron and Kyrie did. And I also think it won't hurt to have a guy like DeAndre who knows his role. Like, he's always known exactly who he is, despite that one time that Doc Rivers flew to his house to get him to resign. But that might have hyped him up a little bit. But I think now he knows what he brings to the table. And with teams like this, where you're pairing up guys who've already proven themselves, I think it'll help having him there because he's in his lane. And I think at the end of the day, matchup-wise, it's going to be necessary for them to have someone like him to go up against Embiid and against Giannis. Depending on how far they get in the playoffs, you're going to need a rim protector like that those teams didn't necessarily have before.
So let's go to the other side of this, where it seemed like Durant was trying to really stick it to Brooklyn by just leaving Golden State, because what ended up happening later on in the evening was that this transaction that was just supposed to be about Kevin Durant leaving Golden State and going to Brooklyn, turns out this is actually going to be a sign-and trade where the Golden State Warriors now have D'Angelo Russell. They got him on a max deal, 4 years, $117 million. What do you think about Golden State making this move, Junior Blue?
I mean, it's a good move for now, and I think we talked about it that night that he's not going to be on the team by the trading deadline, if not this season, the following season, because Klay will be back. You're not necessarily going to play Klay at the 3. D'Angelo Russell and Steph Curry will be the worst defensive backcourt ever. So, I mean, they got it to save next season. They were like, we don't want to be in the dumps next season. Let's add an all-star guard who can score, who can pass, and who can take it to the rack. And I feel like they kind of saved next year for them by doing this. And they also gave themselves the opportunity to trade for more pieces that will help them in the future.
Yeah, see, I think that was more of it, Dev. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Band-Aid. I mean, they can't sit idly by while they're arguably their best player has left. Then you have their second or third best player, however you want to look at it, is not playing at least until the All-Star break, if not after that, if not missing the whole of next season because the injury was so late. You have to do something to mitigate that. Now, again, when will he be gone? Will it be next trade deadline?
They have to wait. I think to me,
December.
I think it's strictly about getting more assets. And I think that it's something that will be because he's going to have value, whatever. I think he's gone by December. I don't know that it's even. What
do they get for him?
Good question, right? I mean, they need bodies. I mean, if you project right, they've got, because the thing is they're a hard cap team, because by virtue of the max for Klay, the max for Curry. They're going to probably offer the max to Draymond or a big money number, which they can do because, again, he's their player. And then that's pretty much all that they have. Everything else after that is a bunch of, as Omar would say, flotsam and jetsam. So
you don't have faith in Glenn Robb, the third?
Or Willie Cauley-Stein?
Trill?
Right. So I think you flip it for two bodies.
But now that those three guys, Klay, Dre, and Steph, are mature, have been through it, I think you don't need as much as you've needed in previous years in terms of the depth. I mean, they need depth, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think it needs to be to the extent that it was before because these guys have already proven themselves. And we're looking at Draymond coming into a contract year. He might be in the best shape, and we might get the best 82 games out of Draymond Green. But in terms of the D'Lo pickup, I couldn't agree with Les more. The only thing I would say is that because we know defense isn't played in the regular season, D'Lo just got to get them to like a top 4 or 5 seat, get them in the playoffs. And then after that, thank you for your services. We'll try to trade you for 2 or 3 pieces that they can build on moving forward.
I think the Mike Conley deal is probably a good context for what you would get. You're going to get a couple of veteran players in the draft pick, you know. All right. Who made going to the Eastern or staying in the Eastern Conference? Who made the better moves between the Milwaukee Bucks, the Boston Celtics, the Philadelphia 76ers? When you look at Milwaukee, they re-signed Brook Lopez. They re-signed George Hill. They also added Brook's twin, Robin, which was interesting. And then Wes Matthews has a homecoming. Most notably, they let Malcolm Brogdon go. That's Milwaukee. The Boston Celtics. As we all know, they lost Kyrie, lost Al Horford in a bit of a surprise, although they did make him an offer. But Horford was like, yeah, thanks for that offer, but I already got something better coming. And in turn, they added Kemba Walker, Max Deal. They had a really good, I think a really solid draft, and then they added Enes Kanter. That's Boston. Philadelphia. They were the mystery team, the Al Horford mystery team. They're the ones that got Al Horford. They made their choice between Jimmy and Tobias, and they chose Tobias. 5 years, $180 million. They traded Jimmy Butler to Miami, which, Jimmy, I don't even understand.
He about to be living the life.
They traded Jimmy, and so in that trade, they will get back Josh Richardson. I'll start with you, Dad. Who made the better moves between the 3 teams?
I think it comes down to, I think it's the Bucks, because they kind of they overpaid for every fucking thing, but they basically stayed the same.
I think everybody overpaid for everything.
I mean, and that's what we were talking about prior to the show. I mean, losing Brogdon, Junior Blue said, you know, you lose a 50, 40, 90 guy, okay, but then you don't pay him. You get the discount George Hill, which we were talking about.
Thief.
He was a thief, but he was hooping. He was hooping, and I think they were like, you know what, we were this close. Mm-hmm. Let's retool up. Mm-hmm. We don't have to do too much. Mm-hmm. I mean, they missed Brogdon a large portion of the playoff run anyway. So this is what our team looks like without him. Yeah. So let's go, and you know, let's lock Chris Middleton down.
I mean, forever. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I didn't mention that because that was a foregone conclusion. That's part of the Giannis play. They want to keep Giannis. I think the point about Brogdon, I think Brogdon is going to hurt, and this sounds funny to say, but I think he's going to hurt Indiana more than he hurts Milwaukee. What I mean is with him and Oladipo, they got a starting backcourt that for like 30 games is going to be great. But them other 50 games, they're both going to be missing games. And I think for the amount of money that Indiana paid for him, I think that's what's going to hurt them because they're betting big. Like Milwaukee could afford to not have Brogdon for games because they had George Hill, they got Eric Bledsoe. Yeah. Indiana's not going to have that luxury as far as that goes.
Do we know when Oladipo's coming back?
Right.
Because when was that? That was mid-season?
Yeah, and it was a quad. He tore his quad. And that's the same leg that he had the ACL tear in Indiana. So it's the leg is breaking down. Milwaukee, Boston, or Philly, Junior Blue?
This is a hard question because I feel like none of the teams got better.
Huh.
None of the teams got better. You lose Brogdon, that was a key piece that you feel like could have got them over the hump, right? Mm-hmm. So you lose that. You didn't really gain anybody to help them. Boston, you lose Horford, you lose Kyrie. You get Kemba, who will fit in better with the players that they have, right? You do lose Horford, which will hurt, but I think you can make that up. Mm-hmm. To me, Philadelphia chose the wrong person. Chose the wrong person. I mean, Tobias Harris is cool, but he puts up numbers on bad teams. Or average teams, he'll put up 20. When
and
he came down,
maxed him out
for 5 years. We got a question.
Yes, let's get into that.
They maxed him out for 5 years. In the playoffs, we saw what happens to a player like Tobias Harris. he doesn't score the same. So now you're telling me you're going to run out there with Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, Josh Richardson,
Al Horford,
and Embiid.
Mm-hmm.
And say, somebody give me who's closing. Yeah, somebody win this game for me.
Who's winning? Who's winning
the game?
I'm saying if Embiid posted up, maybe.
Yeah, if
closing, who's taking a shot outside the paint?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So
bully ball.
So I hate to say it, but I feel like Boston had the best moves because they salvaged something.
Yeah.
Where the other teams got worse by their choices.
Kev?
Yeah, I can't disagree with Les. I would say because Milwaukee lost the lease, but they also put themselves in an interesting salary cap situation. Boston they pretty much saved the same production at the point guard position, but just lost the headache. I think Kemba will be a much better fit for that team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still think Boston has the best roster.
Yeah.
But Philly, man, I feel you. Like you try to keep pieces in place. You got Horford away from your competition, but again, Devin kind of threw a jab in at it. I think bringing in Horford is almost an indictment to Embiid. Like, hey, bro, we got the pick and pop big. We don't need you at the 3-point line. Get your ass in the post. I just don't know if he'll be healthy enough to do that.
Yep.
And
but maybe
look like the last couple years for Philly, like, oh, it was nice, it was a cool story. But yo, the process is over, B. Like next year is it for these three teams. One of these three teams have to make it to make it out the East to make it to the finals, or ultimately this whole project for all of these teams will kind of look like a bust.
But maybe that's part of the benefit of Horford is that he is that Embiid insurance for those 20-25 games that he'll miss. I think
load management.
I think the key is I think Les, one of you guys made the point that if you can convince Embiid to be the big that he's supposed to be, then this situation can work. That is the question. Is Brett Brown the guy to get Embiid to see the light? Because theoretically, Horford, you can't double team. Because Horford can hit that 15-foot mid-range shot. He can even drag his man out to the three-point line.
Double off big.
You can triple off him.
And speaking of, they've already did it.
Oh, they did
5
it?
years, $178 million.
Mm.
So they're doubling down on Ben Simmons. It'll be interesting to see how the Eastern Conference shakes out.
As much shit as we talk, you kind of have to, right?
No. You don't.
What do? You let him go?
He's got a lot of value. Well, no, what you do is, and I think Omar talked about it on the show last week, you go draft a shooter.
Oh, you mean the one that they were supposed to get?
Yeah.
And who did they let? You know what? And now that I just think about it, I think Philadelphia going after Horford was payback for them getting worked by Boston in the draft. Because the thing about Boston knew that they wanted Carson Edwards. And they put pressure on them to make Philadelphia to trade back. And I think as payback, they then became the mystery team to outbid them for Al Horford.
Can you imagine a team winning a championship that just spent over $400 million on Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, and Al Horford?
And with that in mind, let's go to the next question, which is
called a segue.
Of these contracts, and we'll stay right there, Junior Blue. Who is your worst contract overall so far in free agency?
Tobias Harris. 5 years, $180 million. It doesn't make sense.
I'm gonna ask a Devin question. Don't you have to do it?
You could have paid Jimmy Butler 5 years. 4 years, 141.
Dad?
Yeah. I think, and this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with money, but I think Aminu to Orlando. It has nothing to do with money.
Yeah.
But why? You already, it's a logjam. You got Gordon, you drafted Okiki. He's hurt. Whatever the fuck his name is. Jonathan Isaac.
Yeah.
Why?
A good question. I mean, we've been asking why in Orlando for a minute now.
So what are they doing? So I mean, like, it has nothing to do with how much money they spent.
Right.
Like, you could have gotten a guard, a shooter, something, but you gonna get somebody that plays the same position that 4 of the dudes on your team already play, and get time, and you have to let them play and develop.
Kev?
So I kind of thought about this in a few ways. My first thought when I saw that Denver extended Jamal Murray, I was kind of like, that's kind of steep. But then seeing what they have in place and seeing that, okay, so if you don't sign him now, then you probably lose him or overpay him in the next 2 years, even more than you're paying him right now, you solidify. But I'm going to take it a step further. Devin said Al-Farouq Aminu, who made, 20, he got, 3 years, 29 million?
Yeah.
Why the fuck is Indiana paying Jeremy Lamb for 3 years, 31.5 million? Bro, listen, that's not a lot of money compared to what everybody else is making. But I sat back and really thought, what has Jeremy Lamb done to make $10 million a year in this good Lord's NBA? I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, I mean, so I know that the stat geeks like Jeremy Lamb a lot. Based on PER, and I mean, no one was paying attention to Charlotte except for basketball nerds. I want to go back to Philadelphia. That Al Horford contract is going to be bad in 2 years. He's 33. He's played a ton of basketball, a ton of playoff games.
$400 million, right?
4 years, $109 million. They're not going to be able to
92 of it is guaranteed?
Yeah, they're not going to be able to move off of that. Let's go to the other side. Best contract in free agency. Dad?
I think you have to look at a team that we knew after the draft what they needed. And I'm going to go ahead and say J.J. Redick.
Yeah, I'm
2
with
years, $26.5 million to the Pelicans.
That's called the sweet spot.
Shooters, shooter. That's what they need. I think you can't beat that for 2 years.
I'm with you on that, Kev.
I agree with you, Dev, and I hate to go back to argue this point, but I feel like it was Ben Simmons. And listen, I only say that because, granted, yes, he hasn't made a three-pointer his entire NBA career.
Wait a minute. You said that Ben Simmons is the best contract?
Not best contract. I would say best value, because I feel like that was the question on the paper.
Yeah.
And I only say that because, listen, I remember it's back in people's memories, but I remember when Jason Kidd couldn't shoot for shit. I remember when Derrick Rose couldn't shoot for shit. And Ben Simmons, despite all the jokes that we make and people make, he's only 22 years old. He's 22. Like, he has room to improve. And I think if they're going to put their fork down anywhere and say, all right, this is a staple of our franchise, get it out the way now.
Hey, Kev.
As opposed to paying him $200 million and he still can't shoot 3 years from now.
Kev, how old is Markelle Fultz?
That's beside the point.
Same fucking age. He's done.
But Ben Simmons is a star in this league. He just got some things. At 22, come on, man. I think this will pay off. I hope. Maybe not.
Junior Blue?
This was the easiest question. I'm just going to name some of these contracts. Jamal Murray, 5 years, 170. Porzingis, 5 years, 158. Chris Middleton, 178. Klay Thompson, 190. D'Angelo Russell, 117. Jimmy Butler, 142. Whoever the fuck signs Kawhi Leonard for 4 years, 141 is going to be the best contract and the best value.
Oh, I love that. I see what you did there. I see what you did there, Les.
That's a good point.
That's a great point. All right. Let's take this time to acknowledge the New York Knicks. Does anybody understand, and I just want to put it out there, somebody just jump in. Does anybody understand, first of all, what the Knicks are doing? And then as a backup question, agree with what the Knicks are doing.
Y'all finished or y'all done?
Get that again.
Y'all finished or y'all done?
Yo, next question, bro.
Hey, you know what, Ken? This is how I see it. I don't think this is really what the Knicks are or aren't doing. I think it's what the league is showing them they can no longer do. And it's, you cannot bank on a history of championships that never happened, a prestige of Madison Square Garden that doesn't attract people anymore. This is the first time I've seen in sports where star players have blackballed an organization. Like, we're not going there. And their hands were really tied. Whether they offered Kevin Durant the max or not, he wasn't going there. And if he did, he'd be dumb. I think this is just a reflection of everything that the Knicks have done finally coming to a head, and it's like, oh shit, like we really are trash. And now they have to implement a new. Now they actually have to prepare. Like, oh shit, this is the reality. No, we're not gonna get every free agent that wants to come here. And I think they should really.
But they
structure
never
themselves.
have. How the fuck do they have that?
This
Delusions
this
of grandeur.
is the year that if they didn't get it, it should hit them right in the face. But I think they should structure themselves the same way that the Nets did and the same way that the Nuggets did, is try to get as many young players, try to get as deep as you can, and pray to God something works.
Yeah, but
nobody's coming there unless Dolan sells the team.
Nuggets have a quality organization, and the Nets had a fucking Russian oligarch running the team. What the fuck do they have, James?
I think something.
Sell the team.
I think something. I think something is definitely wrong, because if you read the tea leaves, it was talked about. I believe the Knicks were under consideration for Kyrie and Kevin. But then you read the tea leaves. Remember that trade for Porzingis? DeAndre Jordan was a Dallas Maverick. He goes to the Knicks. DeAndre Jordan is very best friends with Kevin Durant. Something is going on in that organization, because you can't tell me that Kev didn't sit with DeAndre and say, yo, man,
give me the scoop,
Give me the scoop, B.
Hey, yo, the Timbs ain't worth it. Let's go uptown. Let's go uptown.
Let's go uptown.
The Timbs ain't worth it. So something is going on. They've got to fix whatever is going on in that organization.
No, they don't.
You right. Real quick, rapid fire. Who improved their team the most in free agency, Junior Blue?
Let's see here. Utah.
Yes, and I agree.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
I agree with that, but I think Brooklyn won because they won the city.
Okay. Kev?
I had Utah, but just for the sake of the argument, I'll say the Pelicans. I mean, whether it's JJ or Derek Favors, I'm not saying they'll make the playoffs, but they are deep and they have assets.
Hey,
I agree. I think they make the playoffs.
Hey, the Knicks improved themselves too, though.
Yo, he's not lying. He's not lying. God damn. All right, let's get into Black versus Blue, our antonym segment. Damn, Les is good. On Saturday, WBO middleweight champion Demetrius Andrade, I still don't know how to pronounce his name. I don't know.
Yeah.
He won a 12-round.
I stopped myself. Andrade.
Right. He won a unanimous decision. He won all 12 rounds. He shut the guy out. That was on DAZN.
Yep.
Same night, WBC champ, we'll get to that in a minute, Jamal Charlo also won a convincing decision
Brandon
on Showtime.
Adams. Yeah.
He defeated Brandon Adams from LA, who just didn't want to throw punches, but he was an awkward fight. Good work for Charlo. We know that Canelo, who is the lineal IBF WBA champ, as well as Triple G, who's the former unified champ, they fight on DAZN.
Yep.
Taking that into consideration and adding the fact earlier in the week that the WBC created a brand new belt called elevating Canelo to the franchise champion. Hope or hype, Kenyon. Will there be clarity in the division with all of that intel right now?
It's definitely hype. I believe the WBC did what they did so as to absolve Canelo from having to fight Jermell Charlo. Because essentially what they've said is, you can't lose a belt you don't have, but we're going to make a belt for you so you always are recognized as that guy and you can fight whoever you want. So that takes him out of that.
He doesn't have to have any WBC mandatories ever.
There's no mandatory. So he can literally fight whoever he wants to fight. And it was reported today that he's actually in negotiations to fight Kovalev,
who is also in negotiations to fight Anthony Yarde.
That's right.
In late August.
Right, and that was actually part of the problem in terms of the negotiation and why Kovalev and his team balked at it, because they're like, well, you're not going to stifle us on the pay because we got to pay Yarde to step aside.
Yeah.
We got to pay Bob Arum some money because of the ESPN agreement. Like, you need to.
I don't understand that move. I don't know what that's about. I think that's more. Maybe it's more of a pissing contest to piss Triple G off or to push that out, but I don't understand why he's. I don't
think he really wants to fight Triple G again. That's what I think it is, and I think he feels like because there was a draw and there's a win, I have the upper hand. I I don't think he wants to fight him again. I think it's what it comes down to. So him getting that belt, that gets him out of the Charlo space. And plus Charlo, as you pointed out, is on Showtime. The question, though, is Demetrius Andrade, who, by the way, I think Andrade would beat Canelo. And I think that they know that. But Andrade doesn't have the juice. But he has on the same network, DAZN, as GGG, as Canelo. And will that fight ever be made? I don't see how it happens unless Andrade is able to fight GGG. But GGG is on the same sort of arrogance that Canelo is on in terms of fighting anybody else. He wants to fight Canelo.
And I'm not actually mad at him for not trying to fight anybody else because, one, he probably felt like he won both of those fights. And he wants to get back. And it's probably the third biggest fight to be made.
It's John Skipper, who was formerly at ESPN and now is in charge of DAZN, said, I basically approved these payments to these guys. They both have 9-figure deals with DAZN because of the specter of a third matchup between Canelo and GGG. So I don't think that we will get a clear answer, although we should. It's unfortunate. The question has to be made, can the two brothers fight? Because that would help some. And again, you have network differences that you would have to overcome. And because both of those fighters are not big name, big level fighters, I don't think it's going to happen.
How does Charlo do against Canelo?
It's an interesting fight. I think until further notice, Canelo beats whomever we put up against him. He's kind of, gotten that sort of respect. I mean, I think we need to give him that. But Charlo is an interesting one. He's 6 foot. He's more athletic and bigger than Danny Jacobs. We know if Danny Jacobs lets his hands go more, he might win that fight. He hits harder than Danny Jacobs. I mean, it's hard to take Freddie Roach's word for anything because he'll say anything. But he said he thinks that Charlo can beat Canelo. I think it's a dangerous fight, which is why they're not jumping to it. You don't have to because he's not on DAZN and they're on different networks. So I think, unless Charlo does some crazy shit like he gets a good, big, high-profile matchup and wins, then they won't jump to it because the money's got to be right.
I think Charlo versus Canelo is, as Devin said, a dangerous fight. The questions I would have would be, Charlo has never been in a fight of that magnitude. How will he handle that? And also boxing IQ. I'm not ready to necessarily cede boxing IQ to Canelo. To Charlo. I think Canelo is probably a better boxer, more intelligent boxer.
Yeah.
However, Demetrius Andrade beats Canelo. He's got size.
I got to see that fight the other day again. It was, he won every single round, but there was some things that I think him fighting in front of his home crowd
had something to do with that.
To do with it. Kev, I'm changing gears here.
Say, damn, y'all, that's interesting.
So this afternoon, the U.S. women's team defeated England 2-1 in a very exciting, interesting game where there were some questionable calls to advance to their third straight World Cup. Hope or hype? Are they the most dominant program in soccer?
Well, I'm hopeful. It's the most interested I've been in soccer, and they've got stars all around. Saw what Alex Morgan did today. Rapinoe, who didn't play but was getting a lot of buzz. The goalie who made the save on the penalty kicks.
That save was ridiculous.
It's so many stars in this team to root for, but at the end of the day, they got to close it out to make this thing official. You can't win 73 games and not win the ship. Same thing for them. They got to get it done.
They're 12-1 in their last games in the World Cup. That's pretty ridiculous. You don't want to crown them. What other program?
Actually, they've won 16 in a row. They got a consecutive streak going. Actually,
they had some stat up that the coach is 12-1 in World Cup games.
Yeah, the coach
they lost to Japan. The World Cup.
I think that would have been the World Cup before.
Yeah,
so they must have lost the game in the group play in 2015.
Yeah, and they're 16 in a row. They've gotten 3. They have 3 already. You go on the men's side. Germany has 4 World Cup titles, 4 total. Brazil has 5. The U.S. women have 3, going for 4. I think it's a legitimate question. That's really interesting because when you think about soccer in America, the United States is not a country that you think of, but yet our women's program is killing it.
You just think it's definitely hope with that because since 2010, they will have been in the 3 World Cup finals. They lost to Japan, then they won, and now they're in the final again. Who are they playing?
I think Netherlands.
Okay, and they
Netherlands
play
or
that
Dutch?
Sunday. They won a gold medal, and then they made it to the semifinal in the other Olympics during this decade. So they're definitely the most dominant.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely hope. This past weekend, we saw the first series of a 2-year arrangement where the MLB will play games in London. Hope versus hype, Junior Blue. Given what happened over this weekend, which I'm sure you'll get into, will that be a catalyst for the growth of MLB in the UK?
Definitely, because that's the baseball we want to see in America. I mean, they had 50 runs in 2 games.
Do you give any credence to the reports that they juiced the balls?
Yo, and I didn't know it was a report, but when I saw that first game, I said, "Oh, that's the strategy. They juiced the baseballs for real." Yes,
I'm with it.
Yeah, I mean they sold out. The prices though were ridiculous. And that was one of the things that they were afraid of. But again, and something that we know from our own research and for what we do here at the League Ambassadors. Folks in the UK love the pageantry. They love the American experience, and they embraced it. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's hype, only because the game of Major League Baseball or baseball in America, they've got some things that they need to figure out. Mm-hmm. So, it's cool to show it for 2 games. You understand what I'm saying? And you can dress up the pig, but it's still a pig.
It sounds like fixing the game is juicing the ball.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't put that past the Americans at all. But for me, no, this is hope. And to the points that Kenyon made, I mean, the locals were excited about it. You had people, wearing Yankees jerseys, Aaron Judge jerseys on the train there. But I think what's also important is that, again, to the point Kenyon made, I don't think it'll take much. It doesn't take much to get the locals over there excited about American sports, American culture. I mean, we met a random Ravens fan out there, asked him, "Yo, how'd you become a fan?" He said, because the first live Super Bowl that got broadcasted was the Ravens 49ers. Ravens won. Now he's a Ravens fan. I think here, all it'll take is going to a game, seeing a guy do something crazy or a team win, and they'll be excited. But I also think what's interesting is I think that baseball offers an alternative to cricket for them over there, because it hasn't necessarily been the most inclusive sport in terms of the governing body that oversees it, allowing it to grow in other places. And if anyone gets a chance, please, I urge you, if you want to learn more about cricket, watch Hassan Minhaj's Netflix special about cricket. It teaches you so much about the game itself and then why it hasn't really latched on in other places. But I think baseball can be that alternative.
So you don't? I think that it's hype just for the simple fact that the sports that they do embrace out there are very physical. You can talk about the flopping in soccer, but it's the biggest sport in the world. And then you talk about rugby, which is big over there. Baseball is a lot of standing around, similar to cricket, like you said. But cricket is very, it's an exclusive sport where people don't always gravitate to it, and it's fucking hard to understand. And it lasts 5 days. It could last 5 days. Moving to hit or flop. Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts were left off the All-Star game. Hit or flop? I'm going to say hit.
I think it's a flop. I think, Manny Machado is one of the leading faces in baseball.
What is he doing right now?
Well, he's actually the reason why. He's the reason why Kevin had a great month in our fantasy league. It took him a while to get going. He's in a new market, so that probably had something to do with it. But I mean, they basically let everybody in on these all-star teams. I think you got to make an exception for him. And then Xander Bogaerts has been the best player for the Boston Red Sox, and so for him not to, and he's been the most consistent even when they weren't playing well. So I think it's a flop from that standpoint.
I believe it's a flop too. Xander Bogaerts was leading, had the highest OPS ever shortstop. How's he not in the game?
And I think in terms of, I feel different about the two, although, I've been watching Manny play baseball since he was 18. I also know that it takes him a while to get going throughout the season. I think he came on late, and that's probably one of the reasons why I would still like to see him in the game. With Xander, though, I mean, to Les's point, he's batting .299, 16 home runs, 57 RBIs. It's almost like they just forgot he was playing and somebody fucked this up somehow, but he should be in the All-Star game.
Junior Blue, Marquise Goodwin wins the inaugural NFL fastest man 40 yards of gold. He won $1 million. Hit or flop?
It's a hit for Marquise. It's a flop. It was on pay-per-view.
Right.
Like, that's what made it a flop to me. I would have watched it if it was on ESPN2.
Wild World of Sports.
Something like...
I'm still trying to figure out what the time was.
Yeah.
That's why it's a
Yeah,
flop.
there's no
You
times.
can't get me excited about a 40 and not give me what the time
Did
is.
they run 4.4?
We watch
Like-
the combine every year, and everybody pays attention to the 40 because we want to know, is somebody going to get Chris Johnson's 4.26? Okay? Or 4.24, actually. So there's no times on this. We were just watching
People run.
flop.
Kev.
Yeah, it's a flop. Honestly, I didn't even know the race had happened until Kenyon sent the show notes. I was like, oh, they did this? Was there any footage?
Only reason
Yeah,
why I
it's a
knew is
flop.
because Omar got a text on his phone on Saturday. I was like, oh, Marquise Goodwin won. I was like, oh, okay.
You could watch the whole competition on Instagram. Like, why would I pay-per-view that?
I think this next question only deserves one person to answer it, and I think it'll be really quick.
Yep.
Raiders on Hard Knocks, hit or flop?
Hit. And why?
Because he said so.
I mean, come on now. That show is sold off of personalities and storylines. Who's going to have more personality and storylines than the Raiders? Nobody. Hit.
The Cleveland Browns are working their way up there.
They're trying to get there.
They trying to get there. Okay, newsworthy or nothing to see here. This is a Wimbledon edition here. Venus Williams was eliminated in the first round by 15-year-old Corey Goff. I think there's a second question there that's probably more deserving than asking if that's newsworthy or nothing to see here. Is it time for Venus to hang it up?
That's why it's newsworthy. Because it's time.
Does
It's
anyone
time.
disagree with that?
It's time.
No.
It's time.
She hasn't got past the third round since 2017 of any event.
It's
Any
time.
event or any
Any
Grand
event,
Slam.
not Grand Slam. Any
Event. It's time.
How old is Venus?
39.
Oh yeah, nah.
She lost to a ninth grader. Like, sorry, Big V, but you got to roll, Shorty. You got to roll.
Okay, speaking of almost ninth graders, Naomi Osaka also loses in the first round to Yulia Putintseva.
Tight booty cheeks.
Is that newsworthy? Nothing to see here.
Tight booty cheeks. It's newsworthy because baby girl, she can't handle the pressure of being number one. She lost in the first week of the French Open.
Yep.
And then she comes into Wimbledon. She had just lost her number one ranking overall. And she gets bounced by an opponent. Now, we know in tennis, you normally are playing the worst of the worst in the first two rounds. And not only was this the worst of the worst, but it was someone that she's known, she's played before. And she got bounced in straight sets. It's newsworthy.
Kev, do you think that when she beat Serena in that final, that all the fanfare going to how Serena was acting kind of maybe fucked her up in the head? Because she hasn't, I mean, like you said, it was the French Open, and now Wimbledon, she's bounced quick. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
Yeah, I mean, let's speak on it. I think even, granted, she played her ass off. She deserved to win that match despite everything that happened. But the way in which she got this crown, could have an asterisk next to it. And I think she is, like Kenyon said, she's struggling to deal with the pressure. Heavy is the head that wears a crown. And what makes great players great, despite any sport, is you're taking your opponent's best shot every time you play them. Can you bring it night in and night out? And lately, she hasn't done it. But again, lucky for her, she has the Ben Simmons syndrome, and she's very young and can grow from this. But yeah, as it stands right now, it seems to be too much.
Well, speaking of someone who doesn't have that syndrome, actually, he's a lot younger than I thought. Rafael Nadal's only 33 years old.
He's played a lot of tennis.
He has played so much tennis, I thought he was 43. But he's currently seated third in the Wimbledon's format instead of his actual world ranking of number 2. Is that newsworthy?
Wait, Rafa Nadal and Al Horford are the same age?
Yeah, exactly.
Yo, what? Yeah, somebody else got that one.
It's I think it's nothing to see. It was newsworthy because he made a stink about it. And so what it means is essentially that if he is to win Wimbledon, he would have to get past Roger Federer, and this is Federer's best surface, and then he would face Djokovic in the final.
If he was 2, it would be the same thing.
Yeah, he just have to play Federer.
He still have to play Federer. So
the
it
same
doesn't
draw.
make sense.
So it doesn't
It's
fucking
nothing
matter.
to see.
Yeah, I agree. It's nothing to see. Again, if you're great, it don't matter if you on clay, grass. Well, for him maybe, but if you're great, you can show up against any competition in any bracket and perform. And I don't think for Rafa Nadal, I don't think it's a big issue.
Kenyon mentioned that Osaka lost her number one overall ranking. So let's go into that. Comeback queen Ashley Barty of Australia, who many might remember quit tennis for a year or two to play cricket 5 years ago. She's come back, and she's now the number one seed. And I think she's number one ranked in the world as well. Newsworthy, nothing to see here.
I think it's newsworthy because women's tennis in particular, like we talked about it with the men's, like, yo, is somebody coming for the crown from, Djokovic, Nadal, and like these guys can't go on forever. But
who is the fourth?
Well,
that's another question.
But on the women's side,
it's wide open.
It's wide open, and I don't know what that does for women's tennis. That like, who's Ashley Barty?
Even the broadcaster network, it was a big fuss about fans that were upset that they didn't show her first round match. They decided to show a men's match that went like seven. It was like 7 sets or something. It was a pretty close match. But the fact that people were upset that they didn't show it. But to Kenyon's point, again, if you're number one seed and you don't draw more attention than some random men's match, then I think that goes to show, the respect that you do and don't have.
And women's tennis, they already have enough things that they're trying to fight against in terms of equality that now if you don't have that sort of, that Serena Williams, that star to sort of anchor your sport around, I don't know what that says about the future of that sport.
But to me, it's funny because I don't even understand how the rankings work.
It's point-based off of, like, the tournaments. You get a certain amount of points if you win or where you place within those tournaments and those Grand Slams.
But Naomi won the U.S. Open, and she won the Australian Open to begin this year.
Yep.
Those are only 2 tournaments she won. How was she ever ranked number one?
She was placing high in those other events.
Third round? I mean, I don't think it was that high. To me, the way she got to number one is that there's nobody that's dominating. So the point, exactly, the point system is kind of skewed. So to me, her reaching number one, she's lost what? 4 or 5 matches this year. So she's been dominant this year. No one else is really getting far into each tournament, but she is. So,
It's by default.
Cameron, it's on you.
All right. Well, we'll get into our diplomatic immunity segment where we will answer some questions from our wonderful fans. I'm kind of going to remix a question that Slug had asked early in the day regarding Mr. Beep Boop Beep Kawhi Leonard, Kawhi 2D2, who has not chosen a team just yet. Now I know Les and Kenyon, obviously you guys have a vested interest in this, but to the group, let's put our NBA fans of the league hat on first. If he were to join the Lakers, would you guys look at this move any different than we looked at Kevin Durant joining the Warriors? Does this impact his legacy or how you view him at all in any way if he were to decide to make that move?
I say no, because he carried a whole country to a championship. And he has 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs. Durant, he had the Warriors down 3-1 before he came to them. So, I mean, and he had no championships. They got washed in the finals.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a totally different move.
He had have fun written on his shoes. It was never going to happen.
It's a bad time.
Yeah, for me specifically, that it's that part right there that I, as a fan, that it didn't sit well with me. Not only as a fan, but just as a competitive person. You had a team down 3-1, and then you go and you join them when, that's the part. So no,
it's
I don't.
Power of Russ.
Yeah, I see it. I see it as 2 separate things. But I think to that point, though, when this happens, I think it breaks the league, and I think it changes the league. I think then you will see a whole slew of changes as a result of this move. That I think probably will make overall, it'll be changes for the better, but I definitely think that this will be a seminal, pivotal moment.
We'll get some championships out of it.
When this happens.
I think the bigger question is not Kawhi, but does it affect LeBron's legacy?
Nah. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I think this is not, him winning.
Not for Brontards.
whatever. But no, that's kind of
not for the Nick Wrights of the world.
No, but that's kind of my point, though. If you are already in the camp of LeBron as being the greatest or one of the greatest,
it doesn't matter. Him
winning 2 more titles is not going to change that. Wherever you are on LeBron, you're going to stay there regardless of this move.
Well, Dev, let me ask you this: do you think that because as it currently stands, it looks like the NBA is wide open, like mid-90s wide open, where 6 or 7 teams could possibly compete for a championship. Let's say Kawhi either stays in Toronto or goes to the Clippers. There is no super team out there in the league anymore. It's just a bunch of combo, like 2 or 3 superstars joining the team and matching up. Would you prefer to, do you think that would be better for the NBA as a whole? Or do you think if Kawhi did join the Lakers, that it would be better for the NBA to then have a villain, to have the Lakers as that team up on the pedestal that everyone's trying to dethrone, again, as we've seen many times in history?
I think the Lakers are going to be polarizing either way. You always have LeBron. They got AD. I think that's something people want to see if they can actually do it. Me personally, I would like there to be more parity. If he does go to the Lakers, I think it's a foregone conclusion like the last few years have been. I think that's a shitty product. Unless you're a fan, obviously you might think differently. But I think I'd like to see those guys go up against each other instead of playing with each other. That's just always been my personal opinion. As far as the league is always going to continue to grow. You had a team not from the United States win a championship. It's going to bring more eyes. So I think either way, the NBA wins.
Okay, and I'm assuming we have time, so I'm going to keep it going. Outside of Kawhi Leonard, we have a bunch of free agents remaining. We got champion Danny Green. We got the Morris twins. DeMarcus Cousins is still out there. I believe what's my man? Jamal. I think Jamal Crawford's still out there. We got a lot of pieces that are, not necessarily
older
top
than me.
top. Hey, but he is hooping. Is there any of these guys that are still out there? Not just the ones that I named, but any free agent that's still remaining that you guys could think could be an important piece to a team that we all assume is going to contend for a championship, or just one that you'd like to see on your team?
Danny Green's waiting for Kawhi.
I think the two best remaining free agents are waiting on Kawhi, Danny Green and DeMarcus Cousins. Because I think DeMarcus Cousins
he's going to go where
he will go where Kawhi. He will go to he will. Well, the thing is he's going to one of the teams in LA. Let's just say that. And so wherever Kawhi doesn't go is where he will go. And if Kawhi goes to Toronto, then he'll have a choice to make.
Yeah.
I think Danny Green is waiting on Kawhi because I think he will go where Kawhi goes. As far as players outside of that, I mean, no, because I think the teams that are going to be good next year, they're pretty much set. Golden State wishes that they just had money to spend to get some of these players. But outside of Golden State, I think everyone else is pretty much locked in with what they have. And so, you're just going to... It'll just come down to injuries and once the season begins.
Yep. You got anything else, Kev?
That's it. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Is coming.
All right, well, let's get out of here. This has been another episode of Confirmation Bias. Once again, follow us on social media. Our handle is @TheLeagueAM. That's Twitter, that's Facebook, that's Instagram. See, I'm warmed up now. You can follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, League Ambassadors. Follow us on Twitch. We might even do something this weekend for the Women's World Cup. I'm trying to convince them to go drinking with me. Visit our website, theleagueam.com. Check out Diplomatic Immunity, our online blog spot where you as a fan can talk your shit. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Going on vacation. DR, what's up?